Committee meeting. My name is Matt Zimmerman, Council President and Council Member from Ward 1. I will be chairing this meeting. Besides myself, the committee members here tonight are Jim Neighbor from Ward 1, Mr. Eric Jenkins, Ward 2, Mr. Mike Kimling, Ward 2, Stephanie Meyer is absent, Justin Adrian from Ward 3, Mr. Mickey Sandifer from Ward 4, and Miss Lindsay Constance from Ward 4. Before we begin our agenda, I'd like to explain our procedures for public input. During the meeting, I will offer the opportunity for public input. If you would like to speak to the committee at any of those times, please go to the podium. I will ask you to state your name and address for the record, then you may offer your comments. So that members of the audience can hear your comments, I would ask that you speak directly into the microphone. And by policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes. After you are finished, please sign the form on the podium to ensure we have an accurate record of your name and address. There are 2 items on tonight's agenda. The first item is the 2017 revised and 2018 budget, Shawnee Chamber of Commerce presentations, economic development and transient guest tax fund, and budget wrap-up. The budget discussion will include presentations from the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce and Visit Shawnee. The remainder of the time will be available for the discussion of the budget. Dennis Monahan, Chairman of the Board, Shawnee Chamber of Commerce, Central Bank, will provide an introduction. Ann Smith Tate, President, Chief Executive Officer of the Shawnee Chamber and Executive Director of the Shawnee Economic Development Council, will review their accomplishments and priorities. Kevin Fern, Executive Director, Visit Shawnee, will highlight accomplishments and the business plan for tourism in the Shawnee in conjunction with the Chamber presentations. And finally, city staff will discuss highlights of the Economic Development Fund and Transient Guest Tax Fund. In order to establish a budget limit and to prepare a notice of public hearing for the July 23, 2018 meeting, the staff is asking for affirmation of support of the city manager's proposed budget, including the proposed expenditures as provided in the attachment and the addition of the following. Item number 1, 2 police officers, 1 fire prevention officer, 1 building inspector, conversion of a part-time court clerk to full-time, community strategic planning, business survey, contract increase for additional shared position, and that position will be shared between Chamber of Commerce and Visit Shawnee, and additional fire station funding using the accumulated 2017 and 2018 unallocated Johnson County Courthouse sales tax and additional bond capacity. All right, Mr. Monahan, welcome.
Hi, I'm Dennis Monahan with Central Bank of the Midwest, and this year is 2018 Chair of the Shawnee Chamber. Thank you for letting us present tonight. What a difference a year makes. We did the similar thing in last year, and last year we were under the trying to hire a new. We received word that our executive director was going to had resigned and was retiring, so we had to hire a new leader of the Shawnee Chamber. There was quite a bit of inner turmoil in how the chamber was operating in the communications with the city, I think, at that time. And I think since the hire of Ann Smith Tate and the reorganization of the chamber and the communications we now have with the city, I think it's a totally different framework of what's been going on. So I'd just like to say that I think the framework of which we're operating now is much more positive, and the attitude of the staff and everything, I think, has been really good. And I just wanted to open that up to begin with. So, do I have to flip the? Is that how this works, or are you gonna do okay? Okay, all right. So the Shawnee Chamber, most of you are aware of the Shawnee Chamber. There's some new council members, so we'll go through this, but I'll go through it pretty fast. Please, if you have questions, I may not have an answer for you, but there's people in this room that can help anyway. The mission statement is to develop and enhance our community through dynamic leadership. Really the chamber is the business liaison to the community. It supports the business, and a vibrant business community promotes a good community at all, for the whole city, which I think we have a very vibrant Chamber of Commerce. Our mission statement and our vision statement are there. There's our 6 strategic focus areas, our membership. Without members, we don't have an organization. We're really beefing that up. We will have a new membership drive this fall, so that'll be exciting. The economic development, which is a subset, community is a focus, the tourism, we visit Shawnee, Kevin will talk about that. And we also are the tie to the government affairs from the business perspective. We try to work with our elected officials in that manner. And then the chamber, every place has an organization and operations. So that's the other main focus area. So our governing structure, we're a not-for-profit. A lot of the funding, hence we're here tonight, especially to the EDC and the Visit Shawnee, are provided through the city funds. We revised our bylaws this past year. It's been a while, so we decided to take a good look at it. And we formed the Visit Shawnee and the Shawnee Economic Development Council were in existence, but now they're 2 advisory committees under the chamber direction. So each of those 2 entities, our contract operating divisions, are formed under the organization of the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce. This is our structure as it is now. So the board is at the top, where the executive committee reports to the board. Ann Smith Tate is overall the supervision of all the staff. Marlene's the assistant. Kevin, who we'll hear from later, is with the Visit Shawnee. Mary, when we did the reorganization, Mary was promoted to the chief operating officer, so she oversees the staff. Shelby Ostrom is the membership. Again, membership is a key part of the chamber. Eric, who was hired in January of this year, is a business development under the EDC side. And you see off to the side, we have an open position, which we're looking for position to fill it. We talked about it last year, the open position, and this is a business retention, does a lot of the analytical stuff to help support the EDC with the companies coming in. It's just a lot of stuff right now for Ann and Eric to handle without a support person that can really dig through numbers and prepare presentations. As you guys are aware, there's a lot of things happening in the city of Shawnee, mostly positive, and a lot of it flows through Ann. I don't know how many deals Ann looks at that no one even hears about, but there's just a lot of work that goes through. I mean, you have to dig through a lot of different opportunities to get to land some of these big deals. So, and even the small ones. But also this position, one thing I think we're not focusing on, and I think Ann will talk about this a little bit more, is the business retention, making sure our existing businesses here in Shawnee feel like they're valued and are heard and getting their voices heard and their needs are met. So that's part of that position also. Now on the bottom side there, the communication side, that is an open position. The person that we had there has resigned. We've done an audit with OA Communications to kind of look at how, and I'm probably the worst person to talk about this, how an organization like a Chamber of Commerce communicates with its members. It's not, although I still like getting the hard copies of this is what's happening this week. It's more the Twitter, the online communications that we really are not. We're getting a lot better at it, but we really need to beef that up. So OA Communications is taking a total look at our communications, how we meet with both not only just our membership, but also the city, the whole membership of the community, and how what we have going on they can hear about. So again, I'm not the right person to talk about how that all works, but it is an interesting process, and this is a good group, and I think they have some really neat ideas. The board of directors, through the bylaws, we had some conflicting things that we had to resolve. We have 19 board members, and right up here we have the executive committee. On the executive committee, through the revision of the bylaws, we've added the seats of the EDC chair, which this year is Leo Nunnick, and then the Visit Shawnee chair, which is Neil Sawyer. So those two positions will have a position on our executive committee, getting input from those perspectives. And we also have the chairs on there, of course, and then the chair-elect, and then also the past chair. Then you have the treasurer, and then Ann also. So and then we have our remaining board of directors on this. There's the 3 ex officio, which includes the mayor, and then the 2 superintendents of our 2 different school districts that we have, Shawnee Mission and DeSoto. So that's a listing of them. So it's a total of 19 board of directors positions. Then, as a subset, as the advisory committee, the EDC exists, and that's been a big focus this year. The Shawnee EDC Advisory Committee. Again, Leo's the chair of that this year. We've added 3 positions, which I think in the past we've had people from the city on it. We have 2 council members on the EDC Advisory Committee, and then the mayor sits on that also. So our big push was to get feed. We didn't want to be thinking we're not communicating with the city council. So we really wanted to get the council's perspective on the EDC side of things. I got to think that, I feel like that's really helped out a lot with the communication. So, and those positions will rotate through on an annual basis, I believe, and or periodically anyway. So, but we had a really good group, a good diverse group. We try to get large businesses, the medium sized and the small businesses. So we have the full range of our business community represented. Then we have the Visit Shawnee Advisory Committee. Again, this is the advisory committee. It's under the chamber, but it's also selected and has members of the community and has the 2 ex officio members too, with Kevin and Michelle, or Ann. And then. Okay, so do we have any questions on the chamber and its operation?
Mr. Neighbor.
Everything, because from where you are 12 months later than where you were a year ago, it's obviously vastly improved. The results show it.
We've really focused on trying to be more open and communicative with the city and also just the community at large. So we're not a secret organization. we're really here just to try to help the businesses in the city of Shawnee prosper. And I think things are going pretty well from the business community standpoint. So. Okay.
Yeah,
I
would concur with Mr. Neighbor, and I know several of our other council members would agree. So, fantastic work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. My voice is kind of weak after the long weekend, so I'll get through it by best I can. Thanks. First of all, I want to thank the chairman and the council committee for giving us the opportunity and to say that it's an honor to be here. I think this is the 10th time I've stood here. This is my 10th anniversary as the director of Visit Shawnee, so it's always an honor every year to be here. Quickly, I'm going to talk a little bit about our strategic objectives, and they're fairly obvious when it comes to tourism, increasing the economic impact of tourism by showcasing our community events, the vibrant economic growth and high quality of life in our community, to continue to build upon the community brand equity through innovative marketing and communication initiatives, and to take active leadership roles in organizations in regional and state level that promote tourism, to work in partnership with the SCDC in the recruitment and development of additional hospitality-related industries, and to identify new market opportunities to increase our occupancy rates for our hotel properties. Looking at some of our accomplishments, as I reported last year, we launched a new website and we are continuing to build upon that. It's a mobile responsive website and finding ways to innovatively market strategies that drive traffic to that site. We continue our monthly GM roundtable, which is the general managers of all the hotels who meet once a month over lunch around the city with the chairman of my committee and myself. And that's just generally to provide information, share inquiries about bookings and fostering cooperation between the properties, and has been very popular with the hotels. Get a lot of compliments from the hotel properties for that meeting every month. I assisted with the production of the Visitor's Guide section of the spring issue of Shawnee Magazine and produced the 10th annual Shawnee Tourism Celebration that we hold in conjunction with travel-related promotions throughout the country, and hosted the hospitality tent at 10 community events. Biggest one just completed at Old Shawnee Days. I attended the National Association of Sports Commissions event symposium in Minneapolis about a month and a half ago for the third consecutive year. And last year, the director of Parks and Recreation went with me. This year, the deputy went with me. That we had 18 appointments with major national sporting events rights holders. And that's building a lot of goodwill and tournaments for the future. Joined the I-70 Coalition, which is a group of DMOs that are from Colorado to Missouri. That will give us a lot more opportunities, already has, to do further marketing and cooperation. Being a small budget CVB, we don't always have all the opportunities. Some of the larger ones do. So that gives us another organization that we can do co-op marketing, basically for transient guests, being just a few miles off Interstate 70. I continue to take a leadership role in the state regional travel and tourism associations, alliances, and marketing co-ops. We fulfilled 329 direct requests for visitor or relocation packets and 7,100 plus requests for group information and or promotional materials. As we look to the future, we need, I think, to build upon the social media channels to market events and promote Shawnee to visitors. Obviously, that's where every year more and more of bookings for hotels and are going to all those type of things. And so we have to become more creative and stay on top of technology as we move that direction. We just recently opened the Comfort, and then the next year we'll open the Fairfield Inn. That'll add another 145 rooms to our inventory. So that's going to demand, obviously, a lot more significant increase in our efforts to capture markets that maybe in the past we haven't really been able to go after. So those three targeted markets that I think I shared a year ago with you, and we've identified and continue to work them. Obviously, because of where we're at in the metropolitan area, being on the western edge, having a tremendous amount of sports facilities that surround us or within our community. Those obviously, sports is one of our major markets that we need to work. Group tour and leisure are the other two. Group tour is a good example of one that we frankly haven't had a lot of time to pursue. I think that now with the price point of the two new properties, we could get a lot of business with that market now that we have a price point that is more in what they're looking for. So that's my, I think, brief report. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from council? I don't think anybody wants to make you talk.
Sorry.
Good evening, Caitlin Guard, City Manager's Office. I'm just going to quickly go over our transient guest tax, which is you have the summary on the dais in front of you. But this is our 10-year forecast, which includes the additional revenues from the Comfort Inn, which opened earlier this year. We're using the same forecast for the growth that we did for the Holiday Inn. The Fairfield Inn is not included within this forecast just because it hasn't opened yet. We don't want to assume that they're going to open this year, but hopefully they will. It also includes funding for Visit Shawnee as set out in the agreement, and then also a shared position with the EDC. And it includes money for Old Shawnee Days with the transfer in the general fund to support Shawnee Town 1929. Any questions on that? Turn it over to Ann Smith-Tate.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm Ann Smith-Tate, the president and CEO of the Shawnee Chamber and the executive director of the Shawnee Economic Development Council. And it is my pleasure to be here with you tonight to talk about our 2019 budget request. Let me see if I can figure this out. this slide just really goes over our strategic objectives. These were established in 2017, and they remain to promote and market our advantages as a business environment and quality of life, to broaden our tax base and create diverse quality employment opportunities, retain our existing employers and encourage their expansion through adding employees, facilities, and in community engagement, attract and support commercial, residential, and infill development, and provide value and connection for our SEDC investors through our programming and targeted communication. This slide right here is our current project dashboard. We are working about 26 active projects and 15 preliminary projects. These total somewhere around 2,000, and this is always just kind of a guess because sometimes we work projects that don't give us a job amount or a capital investment amount, and especially with the preliminary jobs. So our best guess right now is that these projects are estimated around 2,000, but probably that is greater. That chart there in the middle gives you an idea of the types of projects that we are currently working on. Primarily industrial, though just in the last couple of, week and a half, we've opened 3 additional office projects. So, and then we all took a trip out to ICSC with Dave Holtwick and Nolan Sunderman, and Eric Ely and I went out there, and we brought back several preliminary retail projects. So those are reflected in those numbers as well. This is our success chart for the year-to-date 2017-2018. So you can see that we had $190 million in capital investment. That includes the Westbrook Village numbers, 1,029 jobs, 72 million in payroll, which again, some of that is just going back and trying to find accurate numbers of information that was input before Eric and I were there, but trying to get as most accurate count of all of that as possible. But we were successful in 16 attraction and development projects and 6 expansion projects. This is kind of what that looks like. This is a calendar year comparison from 2016, 2017, 2018. The lighter blue is attraction, and the darker blue are retention. So this year, so far in 2018, we are at 662 jobs for the year and 105 jobs of retained jobs. So you can see we've already beat the last 2 years combined in 2018. So, sure. Well, you know, a lot of that is related to the announcements that we've recently had with PBI Gordon, ServiceMaster, ACM. We had the expansions were related to Tallgrass Freight, KCAS Bio. NASDAR had a small expansion amount, but, you know, we've had, you know, just the activity in the entire metro has been really active. We've seen a lot of projects coming our way, and we've been responsive. We've had the right inventory. So that is really just, you know, moving forward, having that inventory available to put out there in front of the potential businesses is really key, because the turnaround time has tightened up so much during my 15 years in this industry that, I mean, now it's, you know, their decision time is compressed, and their time to actually get the shovel in the ground and the building up is compressed. So that we are being forward in this community, helping with the Westlink, those buildings out there. That's very exciting that we are, you know, working with the various development projects around the community to get land at least to the point of shovel ready for these projects is key, because if we don't have the product, then, you know, it's an elimination game. And so they're just looking at ways to eliminate communities, not keep them in. So we need to make sure that we are as teed up as possible as a community. So some of that is that we have the former Perceptive building, which will now forever be known as the PBI Gordon headquarters building. But some of that is just the availability of the product and a good community.
Some of that's really good work.
Well, you know, we hustled, but I mean, it's a team effort. I mean, I would say this all the time in our office, that chambering is a team sport. Like it's a little bit of everybody doing a little bit of everything all the time. So, I mean, it's like, it's fun to be the person that gets to stand up here in front of people, but it's definitely a lot of people in the mix.
Yeah, I was just
The
going to make
2018
it.
number, it went past it. Was it
Oh,
600?
I'm
something?
sorry. Did I? 662.
I was just going to make a side comment on that in response somewhat to Lindsay was asking, I think a significant portion of the reason for these improved numbers is the person that's briefing us has had a lot to do with that. It's not just your energy and leadership, but it's also, I've seen just a really large, significant upgrade in all the staff. I mean, I think vibrancy, leadership, and all that stuff, breeds more of it. So the enthusiasm level is, I think, dramatically increased, and all that pays dividends, obviously, and I think we're seeing those dividends.
But yeah, I
Well,
think
he's certainly
this-
part of
It's
that.
all Eric now. No, I mean, we are so fortunate to have such a dedicated and professional staff that also does like to have a little bit of fun too. It takes their jobs very seriously and works hard. And I inherited that. So I mean, it's just I'm very blessed to work in a good community with good staff. So, but yeah, they're great. They're doing a great job. Well, thank you. This is just an overview of some of the projects that we saw come to Shawnee in the last year. Notable among those are the Perimeter Park Commerce Center, that is the 60,000 square foot expansion. In addition, next to the NASDAR expansion or 60,000 square foot speculative industrial adjacent to the NASDAR expansion that you'll see on the next slide. PBI Gordon, they are the company that will be moving into the building out in Shawnee Crossings. That was, high salaries, 100,000 average salary, more than 100 jobs over the next 5 years, 125. Service Master, another great company for our community. So we've had a lot of, great high-profile names, high-profile wins, and so that just helps set the stage that people know that Shawnee is open for business. And these are some of the expansions. And then at the bottom, you see, as Dennis mentioned, getting out and meeting with our businesses so we know what their issues are, if there's something that we can help resolve, or their opportunities, threats to their industry. Any of that information is key for us to really be successful in helping to nurture our business community. So getting out, visiting with those companies. We've done 15 this year, but hopefully next year when we come back, there'll be maybe even a 0 at the end of that number. So, and then the other part of economic development, and it is really fun to talk about our big wins, but is our small business and entrepreneurship in any community, especially a community like Shawnee. I mean, our bread and butter businesses are going to be those small business owners, and we need to make sure that we are working to foster entrepreneurship, that we are helping to maintain our small businesses, educate them. I mean, 80% of our growth is going to come from the businesses that are already in Shawnee. So that part maybe doesn't get all the headlines, but it is really important. And we all know small business owners, and you put your heart and soul into it. And so we take that very seriously in the work that we do. And we want to make sure that we are a resource and connecting and convening and advocating for those businesses every day, even if it's not making the big headlines. But that's a really important part of that. Workforce development is something else that we're going to be taking a bigger leadership role in, as Dennis alluded to, that we are looking to add an additional position. That position will help support both of these efforts, along with our retention and just research and supporting our real estate database, which is desperately in need of some support. But the key factor right now driving most of the relocation and attraction projects is talent, is workforce availability. And so that is key. I can tell you when I started doing this part of my career 15 years ago in economic development, nobody ever really talked about workforce. It was like, oh, of course, especially in Johnson County, of course we're smart, of course we're available, of course we have the great workforce. But now that's really leading the conversation. And so we are trying to get a deeper understanding of what our businesses need from workforce development issues, working with our regional partners, whether it be our higher education like Johnson County Community College. We're having conversations with Mid-America Regional Council, Kansas City Area Transportation Authority. So we're really trying to dig into all aspects of how we get our labor here, how we educate, and how we help our workforce maintain and build their labor force. So we're doing a pilot program next week with the DeSoto School District, or calling it, for lack of creativity, teacher field trip. But we are taking STEM teachers out into the businesses here in Shawnee so they can get a real life look and conversation with our business owners and talk to them about what their needs are, what are they needing to hire? Where are the skill gaps? What are the things that they need to see our young people coming out of school have? And a lot of them, may not go on to college, may just come right out of high school and into the career field. And so as our teachers, and we've got, I know, 2 educators here, they're responsible for educating those children and telling them what the important things will be for their job and their future. And we want to make sure that we're making those connections. And then we're, going out and visiting with our workforce and talking to them. And we'll continue to evolve this part of our program over the next couple of years. These are some other projects that we are working on. And, I must say that, absolutely everything we work on in partnership in the team with the city, with Nolan and Dave and Paul and Doug and everybody at the city. So it's been a great team. I mean, I came from a city environment, so that's kind of what I know. And so it's been great to work with everybody on that as well. So up here are some of the major projects that we are working on right now. And I'll kind of keep you posted on any of those as they continue to move forward. Here's some of on the marketing. We calculated, and this is an estimate, I think I might have underestimated, but I think I've had somewhere around 118 meetings with investors, brokers, and potential projects. It's been a lot of coffees, a lot of lunches, and a lot of pounds. But we've hosted 5 EDC membership events, including our SIOR reception, which we will be doing again this year in partnership with Central Bank and GBA. So we will be doing that down at Rock Hill Grill, and we will make sure you all get invited to that. We did first time an EDC event at the Royals. It was a great day. We'll do it again next year. As Dennis also mentioned, we've done a communications audit. We are just trying to reset our brand in the way that we communicate our story to the people that are investing in us, getting that information out through our indicators report. We've created just the 8 at 8 networking opportunity, which has been, very successful. People have really liked it. It's an opportunity, no agenda, no program, just 8 investors to sit around and talk about things. And I usually try and throw out some question about Shawnee, like if, you were to create one billboard for Shawnee, what would it say? And that usually will get people started in thinking about the things that are happening in Shawnee and making those connections. And then I've attended a couple of the site consultant trips, and one of those also represents Ellie Bowen's trip last year representing Shawnee. And then, as I mentioned, we just attended the ICSC conference where I think we calculated about 32 potential projects, contacts, investors that we made while we were out there. And our work plan going forward is, just to continue to partner with our regional and state partners to position Shawnee as a desirable location for office, industrial, and mixed-use projects. Again, residential is also going to be, important. We need the workforce. We need to have that density. I mentioned expanding our workforce development initiative and our expansion and retention efforts. We will be purchasing a software program. It's called Synchronist. It's used in many economic development councils throughout the country, and it really helps us benchmark that information that we are collecting when we're out talking to the businesses so that we can look for trends over the years. If there's something that we can really find a way that we can advocate for in Topeka or on a national level, or regulatory issues that we need to have discussions about here, that's the kind of information that we're seeking that we think that we can help maybe make an impact in. I'd like to do a community exchange with a similar suburban community. So we're looking at doing that. I think that can really help get people excited and really just touch and see a project that other communities are doing is invaluable. We need to create a new website and update our marketing materials, and then, just continue to increase our presence in the local, regional, and national development, networking, and consulting events. So, the number one way we're going to let people know that we're out there is to get out there. So we try and do a lot of that. And then we, this year, supported the Chamber's advocacy work. We partnered with the Chamber to hire a part-time lobbyist to help us with our work in Topeka. Many of the issues that are in front of the legislator do have to do with economic development, so we felt that it was important that we had a role in that as well. And then the city economic development work plan, you want me to go ahead and talk about this? So the creation of the Street, Water, and Sewer Benefit District for Eco Commerce Center, as I mentioned earlier, having that shovel-ready site is going to be key for us to still continue to be in the game for any of these industrial and, probably flex maybe office projects out there. Nolan will be leading that part of this initiative. And then engaging a master developer for Neiman Corridor. That is a really important project for this community. As you all know, there's already been a lot of investment, and we really think that there's a lot of potential there, and Nolan will be leading that as well. And the budget highlights the ETC survey. That is something that the city and that we're going to partner on doing as you all know, ETC does the citizen survey. They also have a business survey component. So we will be partnering with the city and chamber to get that out to all of the businesses in Shawnee in 2019. I don't know if we have a definite quarter or date in mind that we're going to try and aim for that, but expenditures, Councilman Jenkins, you had asked about just sort of the breakdown of how our funding is. And so we are a people organization. 63% of ours is spent on personnel. That includes our staffing and training, benefits, all those things that go into kind of keeping the staff there educated and operating. 25% marketing and 12% for operations. I think you'll find that falls right in line with other not-for-profits on a national spectrum. And I think Vicki had mentioned that's kind of where the city falls to generally for their breakdown. And then this is the Economic Development Fund, and take that over. All right. Oh, any other questions while I'm up here?
Any questions from council? Mr. Neighbor?
Just keep up the good work.
All right, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ann.
Hello again, Caitlin Guard. Just to go over the Economic Development Fund for the city, I know Finance Director Rogers issued the Economic Development Report earlier this year, so you've seen a number of this already, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But you also have a summary of the Economic Development Fund on the dais in front of you. As you know, this fund, it's funded by the landfill impact fee. 50% of that goes towards economic development, and the other half of that goes towards street maintenance, our mill and overlay program. But that 50%, that does go towards economic development. Right now, we have the debt payment on some capital projects that are linked to economic development, including the new Clear Creek Parkway extension, the Neiman South Creek realignment, Neiman Road, and the 43rd Street projects. In 2019, we've also included a study for the future use of the Wonderscope building that's about to be vacant, and then also the many seat agreements that the governing body has already seen. In addition, the contract with the Chamber of Commerce is also in there, and the additional position that Ian was just talking about. So if there aren't any questions on economic development for myself or any of the staff that are here.
Lindsay?
Thank you. Is the study for Wonderscope, does that also link to the master development plan for the Neiman Corridor? Are those two linked, or are they separate projects?
We could try to tie them in. Really, it's kind of just looking at a different use or kind of the feature of that building in terms of with the current construction, could the building be reused, and so how? And we have actually some ideas and have some interest in the building. So also kind of looking at the timeline when Wonderscope will actually vacate the building as well. So.
Any other questions from council?
For myself or Visit Shawnee or the Chamber, you're more than welcome to sit through the rest of our budget presentation. That's all that we have for economic development.
No more questions? All right.
Okay. We'll continue with the budget wrap-up for the remainder of the budget season. We do have a tentative council committee meeting scheduled for June 19th. That is completely up to the governing body's decision on if we want to have that meeting after the discussions we have tonight. We can determine that at the end of the meeting, but I hope we have some pretty good discussions. Tonight, we do hope to make a decision regarding the additional funding for the fire station. I'll go over the additional funding opportunities there. We would like affirmation on the city manager's proposed budget to include the positions that Councilmember Zimmerman discussed, the 2 police officers, the fire prevention officer, the building inspector, and then the conversion of the part-time to full-time court clerk, the community strategic planning that's included in the proposed budget, the business survey that Ian was just discussing, and then the contract increase that we were just discussing for that additional position, and then any other item that the governing body wants to discuss as well. So with that, we have three options for the additional fire station funding. These options have been presented to the governing body before, but I really hope tonight that we can come to a consensus so we can include these projections in the proposed budget that we'll discuss at the June 23rd council meeting, July 23rd council meeting. The first option is to fund the increase with the county courthouse sales tax. There are advantages and disadvantages to all of these options. But for this option, this advantage would allow for the use of the balance of the courthouse tax to fund other projects, and it doesn't use future capacity in the debt service fund. Disadvantages would limit the capacity of the courthouse sales tax for other projects until the remainder of the fire station is paid for out of this fund. The second option would to be debt fund the entire increase. So this would allow for the use of the courthouse tax to fund other projects, but it would reduce the debt capacity in future years. The third option would be to use the courthouse tax for the entire project, which allows the city to roll back the mill levy if that's what the governing body chooses to do, or to limit the capacity, but it would also limit the capacity of the courthouse tax for other uses until much later into the tax. Is there a discussion from the council?
Any questions from council?
What is it we're hoping to do tonight with these three options? Come up with selecting an option or just reviewing, just looking at the options?
Staff is requesting the governing body to come to a consensus.
Staff is requesting, we look at the three options.
Just want to be sure what the objective
Yeah.
is here.
Yeah, we'll pick one of these options.
Because I'm pretty
and
supportive of option number 3. It would allow us to roll back the mill levy. If we had, when we did that mill levy increase at the time, there was a lot of vagueness about whether or not that tax would pass. So we couldn't really incorporate that into our budget process. And now that we know it passed, we do have this source of income. Perhaps we didn't need to have the mill levy increase. It would be nice to turn some money back to the people if we could do that. So I would favor option number 3.
Mr. Neighbor.
I like option number 1. The reason being that we can take those monies from the courthouse, which, and I believe it was passed we're already 2 years into a 10-year with a sunset, so there'll be 3 years, 4 years. So, but it would allow us to get the fire station taken care of. And the other part is it would also free up in year 3 because we have coming down the pike here the radio change-out program, which is over $1 million. So it would allow us for that. And looking down here at the way the costs and things are going with our public safety budgets and things, I am sure that I'm sure we will be able to find a valid use for those funds going forward, as far as public safety as new and different arise and different mandates come forward.
Mr. Kemley?
Yeah, I'd also voice support for option 3, like pretty much for the reasons that Eric said, but I'd also like just that opportunity to use this public safety fund for public safety.
Mr. Adrian?
I'm in favor of option number 1. I don't see it possible for us to get the support from the public to gain another mill levy increase if we do need one in the future. If we do give this back, they're gonna be like, well, what was the need for this? Why did we have this? So I'm with Mr. Neighbors. I believe option number 1 is the best option.
Mr. Sandifer?
I'm in favor of option number 1. I believe the same here. The people, this was an option that people are not afraid for us to use. And if we give it back, chances are very difficult of getting it back again down the road here with what the legislative process has done to us. And I think we have a lot of good uses for it at this period of time. So I'm in favor of option 1.
Ms. Constance?
I would also like to support option 1. I feel that by giving back $500,000, that's not going to provide much of an additional savings to the average homeowner. And so I would prefer to be able to have that funding and that revenue to put towards some of these additional unmet needs and things that may come about in the future. Also, it seems to me that our construction costs keep going up, and with future projects and things that are needed across our city, I'm really concerned about cutting off additional revenue. So.
I'm going to just weigh in on my own behalf. It's always appealing to be able to give tax dollars back to the constituents. My concern specifically about rolling back that mill levy is that that money is more of an operating cost. It's there to serve operations, payrolls, and such. As that impacts each and every house, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's somewhere between $10 and $15 is what I understand. By contrast, the courthouse tax, it's a short-term deal. I think the sun sets on that in 10 years or something like that. We have expenses that Councilman Neighbor has spoke to, and I just feel that giving up a revenue stream that covers operating expenses and trying to cover that with the cost of something that's capital expense oriented is just not the right thing to do. Within the context of all of that, I'm going to put my vote in for option 1. So, in terms of, Mr. Jenkins.
Just in terms of what you just stated about the operational funds, the mill levy increase was sold and passed as a measure to pay for the fire station, not for operational funds. It was to construct a building and fund that. So that's the fact that this city, we're quick to say, hey, we need to increase taxes because we did 2 tax increases in consecutive years. If you have an opportunity to demonstrate for the taxpayer that we are good stewards of your money, and at times, if we don't have to have that money, we would like to return that to the people that are paying for it. That seems very appropriate. It's a hell of a message to the folks out there that we are managing their funds. And I think to just say, oh, well, we might have additional expenses, but we don't want to give up a tax because you never know if we get another tax. I mean, I think that's really myopic at best when you look at it. I think we really we need to be much more serious in our stewardship of the tax dollars paid by the people of the city. If it's only $10 or $15, maybe for some people that's no big deal. Maybe for some people it is more of a deal. But I know, and I had this discussion with one of our council members that property taxes are increasing regularly. Just for the record, mine went from $283,000 on my property appraisal to $327,000 last year. I find that to be pretty significant. And when I discussed this on the council, that property taxes have a built-in inflation factor already in there. So I don't know if that's some guy was really smart way back when and said, oh boy, now we don't have to pass new taxes every year because we got this built-in inflation guard with the reappraisal of home values and business values. So this is kind of a tax on top of a tax, in a sense, because we've already got an increase in appraised values of our homes that we're going to pay for, and then we put another tax on top of that. I think we really need to be very judicious in levying taxes on our folks. And I feel very strongly that we got this courthouse tax that people passed, and it's the people of this county passed. It's money that can be spent on these kinds of projects, very specifically these kind of projects. I think it's great. I don't want to hire staff based on this money. But building hardstand buildings and making those kind of investments in construction and so on are good because they're not necessarily long-term, although there is some long-term cost in maintenance and so on. But it's, I don't know, I just feel really, really serious that we need to take a real hard look at returning some money back to the people anytime we get that opportunity.
Any other comments? I'll only, not to belabor it, it was my understanding that some of that money goes to cover the cost of additional payroll. And in the spirit of what I think you just said, some of it is to recover costs for depreciation relative to safety equipment as opposed to specifically a fire station. So I want to formalize this, Vicky, for you. Is it appropriate that we take a vote, option by option?
Yes, please. That would help us tremendously.
Okay. So I think we kind of know how this is probably going to turn out, but what I'd like to do is I'm going to take a motion to accept option 1, and then we'll just, as this progresses, if we need to progress further, we'll go down the lane. So I'll accept a
I
motion.
move that we accept option 1.
Second.
A motion has been made for option 1 and seconded. All those in favor
That's
say
to move it to the governing body, correct?
correct, to move it to the governing body. That is correct. So a motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
So we have Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Kemling opposed. Motion passes. Let's see, we have 8 other items. Vicky, I think you're looking for some specific guidance on this. So those 8 items, I want to direct everybody to the agenda. And I'll briefly go down and line item again, one by one. Item 1 is the addition of 2 police officers, 1 fire prevention officer, 1 building inspector, conversion of a part-time court clerk to full-time, community strategic planning. Number 6 is business survey, and that's the cost to share with the Chamber of Commerce. Item 7 is a contract increase for the additional shared position between the Chamber of Commerce and Visit Shawnee. And the last item is the additional fire station funding, which we just talked about. So we have, I guess, 7 of the 8 items to discuss. So I'm going to accept with regards to adding 2 more police officers. Do we have any conversation from anybody on the council regarding the addition of 2 police officers? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 2, the addition of 1 fire prevention officer. Any conversation from anybody? Council? No? I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The addition of a building inspector. Any questions or conversation from council?
I just want to say one thing. Out in Ward 3, it's necessary for an additional building inspector. There's so much construction out there, and it takes a while for an inspector to get to the project site. So I think having an additional inspector is important, and I know, everyone probably agrees on that. I just want to put my 2 cents in that there's a lot of construction out west, and I think it would help out that department.
Help speed up
big
the
time.
process.
Yeah, exactly.
Point well made. Thank you. Any other conversation? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to move.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4 is the conversion of a part-time court clerk to full-time. Any questions, conversation? I'll accept a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, community strategic planning. Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Just like to have a little more information on what the duties, responsibilities of this person are. I don't really understand this one that well. So if we could get a little more discussion on it from maybe whoever's got all the knowledge on this.
So this is not a position. This is just a strategic plan for the community, for the governing body to
Oh,
issue with
this
the
is for that
citizens.
plan we were talking, is this
Yeah.
like the,
It's like a long-term plan. Mhm.
okay, I was thinking, I got
Not a
confused on
position.
that, like we're hiring a planner, and I didn't know we were hiring one. So this is for those plans we're gonna do as far as, where we need to add infrastructure in the community and all that good stuff that we've been asking for. Great.
Master plan?
Master
study,
plan,
to
community
support
plan,
it?
strategic
Yeah,
plan.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That
Good.
clears it up. Thank you.
Okay. All right, no other questions? I'll accept a motion.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, business survey, and this is cost share with the Chamber of Commerce. Any questions or comments on that? I'll accept a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, the last item is a contract increase for the additional shared position between the Chamber of Commerce and Visit Shawnee. Do we have any questions about that? All right, I will accept a motion.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Let's see, I believe, second item is a priority-based budget update and survey
Not done with
results.
this presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry?
We're not done with this presentation yet.
All right,
We just have a couple more slides.
go.
So I just wanted to go over, appreciate supporting the city manager's budget as proposed with the addition of option number 1 for supporting the funding for the fire station. But I did want to point out there are a number of additional unmet needs. You've seen this list before. We did get to cross one of them off, that sidewalk infill program that's going to be on the CIP starting in 2020. But there are still a number of unmet needs, capital improvements, best practices, positions that weren't included in the budget, and then also the radio changeout program, in which you're going to hear a presentation later in the year from staff from. But just wanted to make sure that this is still on your radar for future budgets and future conversations as money arises, or if we want to start talking about debt capacity in the future. This is definitely a list that we can start from. This list came from the governing body, came from residents, came from department heads, came from staff. This list used to be much, much longer, but we've done a really great job of making it a lot shorter, and then even got to cross something off this year with the sidewalk infill program. Yeah.
Regarding the hilltop with the crosswalk that we've received quite a bit of feedback from residents in favor of, I guess, is there room to have that be on the plan, or do we need additional information?
Yeah, so that is another item that we wanted to talk about tonight. We did slightly discuss it during the CIP presentation last week now, I guess. But there could potentially be capacity in the future CIP for this project if that's something the governing body wants to amend the CIP for.
So just to clarify, there also is about, there's a little room in this year 2018 R budget if you wanted to do for a capital project this year, a small capital project under $500,000.
Correct. You could do a 2018 revised to include this project or the debt capacity in the future CIP projects. Yep, those would be one-time costs.
And so the impact on that would be that it would reduce the 2018 R reserves from 40% to 39%. And it didn't have any impact on the future year's reserves based on expenditures in the future. No. Right.
So that would be the entire 400,000?
500.
Oh, the 275 for those two?
285.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Do
if
we
there's direction
move
from
if
the
we want to
governing
do that,
body,
or how
we
do
would
we-
probably do another vote similar to what we just did for specific unmet needs if you wanted to include them, or to amend a CIP, we would just have to, at a city council meeting or when we discuss the budget, have the governing body request in the 2018 budget, if that's what you like to include, yes.
All right, so would you like to articulate that again, and then we can,
Well, I am in support of the $175,000 for landscaping along Shawnee Mission Parkway. I feel like we are investing a lot into Neiman. And so that area as well is really important to attract businesses and have, a beautiful city for folks to drive into. I would like to say, I'm sure this is something that we would consider, but if we plant things that maybe wouldn't require quite as much maintenance, so it wasn't something that, continued to cost a lot to keep up. And then secondly, I would like to support the Hilltop Crosswalk so that folks have access by foot to the library as well as the businesses and restaurants along Shawnee Mission Parkway. So I move to do that.
yeah, so that's a mouthful. I don't think I can
Sorry.
repeat that whole thing, but is there any, does everybody understand what's being proposed here, and are there any questions from the rest of the committee?
And I'll second it.
So we,
Want me to summarize?
It's understood,
all those things Lindsay said, yeah, could you please summarize that, Caitlin?
So there's capacity in the 2018 revised budget, $500,000. It will reduce the 2018 revised reserves from 40% to 39%. Councilmember Constance is requesting that we use that $500,000 capacity, which really would only be $185,000 to complete the landscaping along Shawnee Mission Parkway.
85,000.
I'm sorry, right, $285,000 to complete the landscaping along Shawnee Mission Parkway and to complete the Hilltop sidewalk.
All right. We got that summarized. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Can I say one thing? I think I'd like to put the Clare Road 55th to 63rd on our radar. I've had many people speak to me personally, whether it was campaigning or after, that they feel the road is unsafe. They are they're riding their bikes, walking, and it's not a safe street. We just need to look very close into the future for this item. I think it's necessary, especially with all the new homes that are going to be built off of Clare Creek Parkway. That traffic's only going to increase.
So just a question, have you driven on it recently? We just did an overlay of it.
I did see that, yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just still had people saying, sidewalks would be nice. That way we're not walking on the street.
Absolutely.
Academic question over there. Is there any plan for cutting Gleason through from where 63rd Street on all the way down through to the new?
It is not on the capital improvement plan.
Answer my question.
Circulation.
It is on this circulation. Capital segment.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple more slides.
So just for clarification to Councilmember Adrian, there is capacity in 2023 for a $7.5 million project. And I think Claire has estimated that it's back on that unfunded
Oh,
needs.
yeah, 6.5, 6.2.
So you all don't have to make that decision immediately. That can still be made next year when we come back to you. But there is capacity out there.
Is that, if we get federal funds for Monticello, would that affect that?
So we have requested federal funds for both Monticello and Midland. Depending on how those federal funds come through, there may be.
Councilman Adrian, are you satisfied with that?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
All right.
There were a couple other items that staff would like to discuss tonight. We figured out the Shawnee Mission Parkway and Hilltop improvements project, but there is debt capacity in 2022, $7.5 million for capital projects on the CIP, should the governing body choose to move forward with any of those. Again, that doesn't have to be decided tonight. Again, when we talk about it at the CIP meeting next year, we can absolutely add on or amend it anytime later this year as the governing body would like. The radio changeout program I discussed, these radios will have to be changed out. The staff will come forward to the governing body later this year with
Just a
more
question
information.
on that while you're talking about that. Have we looked into it all, whether we could put in a grant application to FEMA on that? Is that on the radar screen, possibility, no, not possible, whatever? I used to actually manage that grant program when I was in Region 7, so I know there's dollars there. I don't know if it's competitive, of course, but.
Yeah, John Maddox, Fire Chief. We actually did a regional grant this year, part of the SAFER grant, and was denied. We went in with 4 or 5 other departments in the county on the fire side. We will apply again next year, depending on where we're at on radios, but it didn't qualify.
You went in on a regional basis for the radio?
You
were going after the radio.
Specifically for radios. We did it as a regional grant application.
Good, thanks for trying. Let's try again.
Absolutely.
Like you say, it varies from year to year what the availability of funds are and how many people request.
And what the
et cetera.
priorities are of the grant. too,
Sometimes you can
so.
get lucky and just get in there and get some dough.
Yeah. Well, it was the same partners that we did the SCBA grant last year.
Yeah.
that may have not helped us since we were successful last year and it come back to the county. I don't know. But
Yeah, could be.
thanks, but no thanks letter came like in February. So
Okay, keep trying.
we will.
So the governing body will hear more about that radio change-out program later this year. We need to start talking about the community center, if that's something that the governing body wants to put on a ballot later this year, and funding sources for that. And then also, there are other staffing needs that the city has, other than what's on that unmet need sheet. A number of different departments just have a number of staff requests and requirements that we could potentially be bringing forward in the future. With that, I'm done with this part of my presentation. The governing body needs to choose if we would like to have that June 19th council committee wrap-up kind of meeting, or if we think that this is appropriate, and just bring forward the proposed budget in July.
Any conversation from the committee? Mr. Neighbor?
Neil Holman, Parks Recreation Director. The survey is out. They're probably going to give about 3 weeks, and that's usually, Shawnee does a good job with returning the surveys. So then we'll have that after they get their numbers from each ward and they feel comfortable, and then we'll all have I'll tell Julie and it will go out.
And Neil, we're shooting for that
But
August.
August 6th for presentation. That's what we're shooting for. So I'm hoping that we made a phone call. So we'll have all.
All right, any other questions or comments? I think, Caitlin, you've done a good job. I think that Mr. Sandifer has made a motion that we put a bow on this and wrap it up, approve it as it is without any further ado. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we're good. All right, Caitlin, item number 2. Now that I got ahead of myself. The first, let's see here. Priority-based budgeting update and survey result review. The governing body recently participated in a weighting of community results for priority-based budgeting. Caitlin Gard, Strategic Initiative Manager, will present the results. This item is for information only. Caitlin?
This will be really quick. Thank you to everyone who completed the survey that I sent out earlier this year regarding the weighting of our priority-based budgeting results. If you remember, the city has 3 results that were established by the governing body back in 2013. In 2014, they were weighted at the time by the governing body at that time, and then we just re-weighted them earlier this year with that survey. So thank you to everybody who responded. I have a summary of the weights both back in 2014 and here in 2018, in the packet memo and then also on the screen in front of you. There weren't a extreme amount of changes, but the 2 things that I would like to note is that our result for environmentally sustainable and well-planned community moved from the 6th ranking result up to the 3rd ranking result, 1 point away from the 2nd ranking result. These are averages, by the way. Back in 2014, 9 respondents, there were 9 responses to the survey, and then in 2018, there were 8 responses to the survey, so I couldn't really compare apples to apples, so I had to use averages. So that I wanted to point out that our environmentally sustainable and well-planned community result moved up quite a bit. And then using this chart, I just wanted to show that all of the results, so 2014 is the dark blue, 2018 is the light blue. All of our results are more evenly distributed in 2018 with the results than they were back in 2014. So I'm really excited to see the changes that are going to be made in the overall results for the city. With that, one of the council members did request that we add a new definition to the attractive, healthy, and well-maintained community result. Remember, each result is defined by a number of different definitions. And this definition was requested to be added. So what I need from the council tonight is to affirm that this is an appropriate definition, and then we can go ahead and add it to the definition for this result. It reads, encourages and promotes the development of attractive entertainment venues such as fine dining and cultural arts entertainment that will support the community's economic stability and attract affluent customers to spend more money in our community. Does the council think that that well defines attractive, healthy, and well-maintained community?
Any questions from council? Concerns, comments?
No, absolutely not. I should have brought that. Remember the bubbles, the results in the middle, and then all the bubbles, which are the definitions, are all around the outside. They are on the city's website. This is just, would be an addition. And it would be an additional bubble.
Not the bubble.
Correct. It would be
Yeah,
an
an
additional bubble to the result of attractive, healthy, and well-maintained community.
Ms. Constance?
Can we take out affluent? I feel uncomfortable saying that we only want to attract affluent consumers. Just doesn't feel right. I don't know.
It's fine with me. Any other comments? So, okay, so how do we want that to read?
What do you think, Caitlin? Work with us here.
Okay, so the word that we're having an issue with is affluent.
So,
Such as, to just be more general.
Yeah, so encourages and promotes the development of attractive entertainment venues that will support the community's economic stability and attract consumers to spend money in our community.
You good with that?
I think it's saying it will support, not be the only
Right.
source.
I think that was the intent of its author. Right?
I think it's great.
Caitlin, you want to read that one more time and
And then we'll
Encourages
motion.
and promotes the development of attractive entertainment venues that will support the community's economic stability and attract consumers to spend money in our community.
all right, so we've got a revised definition? Yep, okay.
Encourages and promotes the development of attractive entertainment and fine dining that will support the community's economic stability and attract customers to spend money in our community.
Sold.
Okay,
Perfect.
all right. That's what we'll go with.
All right.
So I'll go ahead and add that in, but there are a couple next steps. I will have to update the model to reflect the new weightings that may have some significant changes, I'm just not sure yet. And then also, we did have a department reorganization earlier this year that will have to be reflected in the model. We no longer have the Development Services Department. It was incorporated into the Public Works and Community Development Department, was used to be the Planning Department. I would also like to abbreviate the result definitions, as we just talked about. They're just very long and wordy, so if there's a way to consolidate them while still saying the same things, I would like to look at doing something along those lines. Maybe more of like an elevator pitch kind of, rather than having to read 7 different paragraphs.
Yep, that's fine.
And then the final thing I would like to share with the governing body is a project being led by Nolan Sunderman to review the partnership opportunities that we have with our city programs. Is there a better way to provide our programs and services that we have to our community? Is that opportunity going to be a public-public partnership, a public-private partnership? What does that look like? Maybe we on-take services, maybe we outsource services, kind of just reviewing that whole process and seeing what that looks like. And Nolan's leading that, and you'll hear more about that, more details later this year.
All right.
Okay? That's all I got for tonight. Questions and discussion. Otherwise.
Thank you, Caitlin. Questions, comments from council?
Yeah, just a quick comment on the, that survey and the, just about a 50% change in public, in the people feeling safe or whatever. And I'm wondering, I guess Rob's doing a really great job because everybody feels safe, so that one didn't have as many respondents or whatever. I was kind of curious. That's a pretty significant change. That was almost
It is.
50%. Now, a lot of the other ones weren't that big. Well, the other one that was really big, of course, was that environmental, sustainable, and well-planned. But those are the two that had the biggest variation in them, and I was just kind of just wondering why that significant change, because that's a pretty critical piece, your safe community thing. I'm just kind of, any thoughts on that or anything?
I honestly just think it may be a changeover of the council, different priorities on the council. Not that safe community isn't important, because absolutely it is, and it's still rated the highest rated priority that we have, or result that we have. But it may just be that there are a number of other programs and services that we provide that may fall into safe community, but more appropriately fall into a different result that are just as important, while having safe communities still be a very important result.
So, Mr. Neighbor.
I would offer, having been a part of that initial thing along, with Mickey up here, we had sticky notes all over the wall trying to figure this out. And I would offer that what we have seen here is that as we have gotten used to working with it and what in fact they mean, and see it going into actual practice, that all of the things that we chose they're all almost equally important. And again, public safety, obviously, when we started out was, and it still is, but it lost a little and some of the others came up. So hopefully it means that PBB has given us a much more balanced look at how we do business and how we take care of things going forward. And we get the subsequent benefit for our citizens and staff and everybody working with it.
Any other comments? Mr. Jenkins made a comment regarding public safety. It is still priority one, and you, I don't know if you were joking or if you were serious, but you said Rob Mosier's maybe doing a real good job, and he's got my vote of confidence. He is doing a really good job.
Yeah, I think he knows it. I think he's doing a great job too.
Yeah, and I think within the context of how this questionnaire was completed is based on a lot of feedback we get from the community themselves. And safety has always been a priority and continues to be that. But I also have heard from a lot of people that they just feel a lot higher level of comfort with Shawnee, and that might be what we're seeing here. So
I think it's very clear. If people aren't feeling very safe, that's gonna be one of the first ones to skyrocket up the chart.
I would agree with that. All right, that was for information only. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, that concludes our agenda. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.